A man, a sword, and an itchy scalp, Yojimbo. Hi, I'm doing a tag from John D. Barker. 5 significant films, personally significant that is. So far this week I talked about Duck Soup, Lawrence of Arabia, today Yojimbo. Now this wasn't my first Japanese movie, that must have been Godzilla, followed by Rodan and Mothra. But Yojimbo was my introduction to samurai films. It's not a typical samurai film, but I didn't know that at the time because it was the only one I'd ever seen. I did have my suspicions, but I'll get to that. The film dates from 1961, set in the 1860s when the last of the shoguns had lost power and their samurai were laid off and forced to freelance, as so many of us are today. Mifune plays one of those freelancing samurai, a ronin, named Sanjuro. He strides into town with what has to be one of the best walks in the history of cinema. There's Chaplin, Groucho, John Wayne, and Sanjuro. Did I miss any? Oh, Marilyn Monroe in Some Like It Hot, like Jell-O on Springs. The picture opens with Sanjuro stepping into frame, but we only see him from behind and from his shoulders up, playing behind the credits. Practically the first thing we see him do is scratch his itchy head. And then he starts that walk into a nearby town, which is suffering at the hands of 2 greedy, warring criminal gangs. How bad is it? In one daring, darkly comic image, Kurosawa shows us exactly how bad. No spoilers. But he softens the horror with a light-hearted music cue, and then Mifune's take when he sees it helps establish his character. Seems to just take it in as data, coldly. He isn't horrified, just sizing things up. Sanjuro sets about playing the rival gangs one against the other. It sounds a little like a Western. In fact, it looks a little like a Western. There's even a 6-shooter in it. Now, you know the rule. If you show a 6-shooter in Act 1, and since this is a samurai film, you know we're being set up to anticipate a showdown between the 6-shooter against the sword. Replay of the legend of John Henry, the machine against the man with the hammer. Come to think of it, Sanjuro also has to face off against a giant with a hammer. A lot of the film is played for comedy, but it's a pretty bloody and slicey comedy. Kurosawa mitigates that by portraying the gang members as 2-dimensional, comically craven idiots without a shred of redeeming humanity. Think Walking Dead zombies, Middle-earth orcs. Think of everybody in a Die Hard movie. It's hard to fault Sanjuro's point of view that the town is better off without them. Bursts of action and swordplay are delivered in real time with Mifune's amazing dexterity exploding within a single take. 10 kills in a single astonishing 10-second shot. That's very different from the way action is usually filmed today, where it's not only the victims who are sliced to ribbons, but the action itself. Cut, 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 cut. Kurosawa shoots action the way Fred Astaire shoots dancing. He actually lets you see what's happening. That seems to be a lost art. Kurosawa is one of the great masters of composition. He's worked out how to use the widescreen frame to best advantage. He'll place actors in the foreground, middle ground, and background, left, right, and center, keeping them all in sharp focus. It's a technique that he apparently learned from watching John Ford movies. Orson Welles got it from the same source. Who does that anymore? Now it's all rack focus. That's how you show your hip these days. Another technique you'll see in Yojimbo, Kurosawa works the sliding doors and shutters of Japanese architecture to reframe his shots dynamically, changing what we see without actually cutting. The shutters and doors create frames within frames. It gives the screen almost the look of comic book panels. Personal impact. An eye-opener. I discovered there's a lot more to Japanese cinema than actors in foam rubber monster suits stomping on flimsy model cities. Mifune's character took me completely by surprise. Didn't expect to see someone with such questionable hygiene. Gruff, surly, scraggly, itchy. He walks with a twitch like he has fleas in his clothes. Even with no context in the genre, my intuition told me this is not a typical samurai. I didn't find out until much later how Kurosawa deliberately set about to smash the conventions of the genre. Until next time, I'm Mickeleh.
Clap your hands, everybody.
DVD extras. Now, whether or not you've ever seen a Kurosawa film, you do know his work, because directors you know have seen his films and cribbed from them. In fact, a couple of years later, Yojimbo became the blueprint for an actual Western, directed by an Italian, shot in Spain, Fistful of Dollars by Sergio Leone, starring Clint Eastwood as the man with no name. George Lucas acknowledges that he borrowed from Kurosawa's Hidden Fortress for Star Wars. John Lasseter and Andrew Stanton borrowed from Seven Samurai for A Bug's Life. Gore Verbinski borrowed from Yojimbo for Rango, not to mention John Belushi's Samurai and Michonne on Walking Dead. If you watch enough films, eventually you're going to run into some warmed-over Kurosawa, so you might as well get it from the source. Oh, I found the opening of Yojimbo here on YouTube. You can see the head scratch and the walk. Here's yesterday's review of Lawrence, Monday's review of Duck Soup, and John D. Barker kicked things off with this video right here. Bye now.